Okay, so what is meditation?
What is meditation? Okay. Well, what I would say right now, and what I find, with a lot of the people coming here, what they're really looking for, is some kind of tool to be able to take them into that place deep, deep within, that place that is silent, that place that is not caught up in the movie, the drama of life, that place where they can rest and come out uplifted, refreshed. I mean, meditation is many, many things. But I would say that the whole point of meditation is for people to find into this space within where they have the opportunity to see beyond, these ideas of who they are. It's like, so many people in the world today, they're very, very caught up in the mind. And the mind changes all the time. It's giving all these different messages, all these mixed messages. And people can be very, very stressed, actually, because they are so identified with what is passing through the mind. So I would say one of the goals of meditation is to take people to the space where they have a little distance from the mind. One of my teachings to people is anything that comes and goes is not who you are. And for many people that's just words. Unless you can take them to a space where they really can begin to observe what comes and goes and how it changes from one moment to the next. So meditation is very often with the use of a simple technique. Just being able to stay in touch with a space within you that doesn't change. A space that some would call it also the witness, or the introduction to the witnessing. A space that is peaceful, that is silent, and that simply can observe all that comes and goes without getting pulled here and there. In the East they often call the mind the monkey mind. It's like a monkey jumping all over the place. And if you're really identified with your mind, you're going to be jumping here and there and up and down. But there is a space beyond that we can call the beginning of the witnessing awareness. And I would say that meditation for most people is finding a way into that space so that they can rest in the silence, in the inner peace, and then become more aware of who they are not, and ultimately rest in who they really are.
So, should people meditate? Should everyone meditate?
There's no rules, and there's no shoulds and shouldn'ts. But what I notice with people is that sooner or later, everybody, it doesn't matter who they are, sooner or later, they're going to start wondering who they are. They're going to start looking for something that we might call inner peace. They're going to start asking questions. And where if people really want the answers, they're going to have to start getting in touch with that silent space within, with the quiet place within. Because if they don't, they're still going to be running around out there. Maybe not chasing every thought that goes through the mind, but chasing many different people's answers to their own problems. You understand what I mean? You can ask here, you can ask there. This person might have this kind of answer. This person might be very intellectual. You find inner peace in this way. Somebody else might be deeply emotional. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to find your way home. So people can still find themselves running all over the place. Not following their thoughts, but following maybe other people's thoughts and ideas. And that's okay for a while. But then people are going to start wanting to know who they really are. They're going to want to make sense of all of this. And my experience with most people is that sooner or later, they're going to need to get into a more quiet, meditative space, because there is a space within you where you begin to know, where you have the answers. You might still need a little outer guidance in the beginning, You know, I believe even the Master Jesus said something like, be still and know. Be still and know who you are. Something like that he said. Because in this deep inner stillness, what isn't useful starts to fall away. In the deep inner stillness, you know, you may be able to look at all the different advice you've had from so many people and feel what is right for you. Also, meditation, because as you go deeper into meditation, you do become more of a witness. And it helps you to create a space between, you know, who you really are and all your reactions to life and what the mind says and what the emotions throws up. Meditation helps people to get into to create a space. Instead of being pulled into the drama of life all the time, they can step back and look. They can be more and more discerning. So they're not, you know, following the ups and downs of the emotions and the thoughts going all over the place. So I would never say to people that they have to meditate. Like I say, there's no rules. But my experiences after all these years of work with people and my own inner journey, that for most people, meditation can be a fine tool. But it's also important that people who meditate, especially in the beginning, that they're really aware that they need to stay grounded. To be able to be in the world and deal with the world. But creating more and more of a space where they can rest in this inner peace and still function in the world, at least in the beginning.
And now you've mentioned quite a few already, but are there any other specific benefits of meditation?
Well, you know, we talk about this with inner peace. And when we look at the difficulty in the world today and so many conflicts, and, you know, people fighting about their ideologies, about their opinions, people wanting to be right, religion, my God's better than your God. You know, if people begin to meditate, they start moving beyond that. If you really begin to meditate and you sit and witness the mind, you will begin to see through all the opinions that the mind throws up. You know, one of the teachings that I often address with people is, if you really want to awaken to your true nature, which is beyond all these comings and goings, you have to let go of opinions. And just look in the world how important opinions seem to be. People have opinions about all kinds of stuff. But you can have one opinion today, another one tomorrow, a totally opposite opinion 3 months from now. All these ideologies that are fighting each other. As people get more and more into the peace within, they can let a lot of this stuff go. And their inner peace becomes more important than being right. A lot of the conflict we see in the world today is because I need to be right. You know, and people still coming very much from the solar plexus. I'm up when you're down. And this starts to disappear as people start going more deeply into the meditation. It also takes them more deeply into the heart space. So people, you know, you've got people fighting for peace all over the world. I mean, what an interesting idea, fighting for peace. But that's not going to work. But as people go deeper into the truth within, deeper into the truth in the heart, the outer conflicts in the world are going to disappear. And also when people know how to come into this space, then there's a lot of stuff that might have seemed important in the world, and conflicts they would have been involved in, where suddenly it's not worth it. And also it's much easier for people to respect other people's way of being, other people's lifestyle, other people's ideas. When you start coming home and get more and more rooted in the truth of who you are, you begin to know. You don't have to be right anymore, because you begin to know who you are.
And so are there some people then that shouldn't meditate for any reason?
Well, it depends what you mean by meditation, right? Because there's so many different meditation techniques. And yes, there are certain people I would definitely say to them, you know, be very careful with this or that meditative practice, because I can see that there is a real possibility that they will be overstimulated. I can see they're not grounded. I can see that some people can be so confused that they need to deal with their life as it is here and now. I might say to some people, or it might be a good idea for you to sit down with some music you enjoy once a day. Listen to the music. Enjoy the feeling in your heart as you listen to this music. And then it can be really fine for you, you know, to work with nature. Dig your garden. If you haven't got a garden, dig your friend's garden. You know, work with the flowers, be with nature. Be with something that keeps you in the body and gives you a good feeling about here and being here and in the physical body and on a physical planet. Not everybody I would invite to a meditation retreat, because some people, you know, the first thing they need to do is to really get into the body and also be able to deal with the emotions they have. Also, somebody, if I sense that they're not very good at looking at the shadow aspects of themselves, you know, the parts of themselves they don't want to look at, they need to work with this first. You don't just go on a 10-day silent meditation retreat, because in a 10-day silent meditation retreat, there's going to be so much energy that everything is going to come up. And if people don't know how to deal with their stuff, then this is what they need to work with first. It's not very often I have people freaking out here on meditation retreats. I've seen it happen. Very rarely has it happened here. But in my own spiritual practice all those years back, I was just lucky enough to find a pathway where we had to deal with our stuff all the time. It wasn't just about meditating on the crown chakra or, you know, going out astral traveling or leaving the body. We also had to be here and deal with stuff. And this is the way I've chosen to work with people. Very often I also recommend that people think of a triangle, you know, where meditation is one point on the triangle. Another point is teachings. Teachings so people understand what spiritual praxis is. Teaching so they understand themselves psychologically, but from a spiritual, psychological point of view. And then the third point of the triangle is some kind of activity, what some people call service. I mean, I don't mean running around thinking you're saving the world, but that people use what they've got to be of use somewhere in the world. And some people are ready to share what they already have, their meditation, their spiritual teachings. Some people are ready to share that with others. For some people it can be, you know, you found a little more inner peace. So you might be able to do a great job as a volunteer in a hospital, a volunteer in a hospice, you know, visiting people who feel they've been forgotten, where you can share a little bit of your wisdom and your presence. And there's so much people can do. And for some people it might be going out working in their garden, and as they're digging in the garden, you know, blessing the flowers, blessing the plants, just putting something of the energy they've received in their meditation back into the earth. But this triangle I ask people who are with me to be aware of: the meditation, the real teachings, and then being of some use in the world, being of some service, or whatever you want to call it. This is a way also of keeping people grounded.
You mentioned a few of the different paths.
Yes.
Could you maybe say something about why there are so many different paths, different techniques?
Well, first of all, there's so many different types of people. So it's like existence has decided there's got to be something for everyone. And there is, you know. If you just look at very intellectual types, people who are very emotional, people who are very, you know, concerned about other people, want to do something for other people. So there is many different pathways, and each pathway is a valid pathway. Each pathway contains its own traps and places where people can get stuck. But what I often say is, if somebody is really sincere in their seeking, you know, and they start going a bit out of balance on their pathway, they will attract another kind of teaching or teacher who can just supplement what they need to know. And also there are so many different people, different types of people who have awoken to their true nature. And they've all walked a certain pathway. And so they will express the truth of their awakening through that pathway that has been relevant for them most of the time. It's a little bit like with religion. You know, I'm not a religious person. The people who come to me are more people who are ready to leave religion behind. But if you look at the different religions, you know, they have also been created around people who had a certain pathway and woke up because of that. And then they teach from that viewpoint, you could say. But there's got to be something for everyone. And, you know, this is a time of great awakening on this planet. So many people are searching these days, and really searching sincerely, and also looking beyond religion, because religion is very much a belief system, or has been. Doesn't have to be. Some religions also contain some good techniques that help people awaken to their true religion, true nature. You know, I was brought up as a Christian, but I've often said to people, if you really need a religion, I would suggest Buddhism, because there's some pretty good techniques in Buddhism. And in Buddhism they also have this focus on the fact that everything is transitory, nothing lasts forever. They have, you know, they get people to look at the emptiness of situations, to be very, very aware that everything that begins, it has an end. And they have some good meditation techniques. Also, like in the Hindu religion, they have the Gayatri Mantra. They use Gayatri Mantra, which is a direct pathway to awakening to your true nature. So, you know, there is something good in most religions, and I'm not saying all, in most. But as long as it's a belief system, you know, and people have to believe what somebody says, then they're going to get stuck. Because real spirituality is not about belief, it's about knowing and being given the right techniques so you can know who you are, so you really awaken to your true nature.
So would you then say you have a specific way of teaching?
My own pathway was very broad. And so obviously this influences what I offer to people. And I have a lot of understanding of spiritual psychology and can see how many people, you know, I don't encourage people to get stuck in psychology or to get stuck in therapy, but that if people understand a little bit about how they're put together and understand a little bit about psychology, it can also help them to kind of be able to stay grounded and not be afraid to address the things they need to address. One of the things I hear myself sharing a lot with people is this with acceptance. It's no good if people cannot accept the role that is playing through them, which we could call the personality, their psychology. It's no good talking about enlightenment and wanting to awaken to your true nature, wanting to be enlightened, if you can't accept who you are. Because this little self, this personality that is playing itself out through you, is also, it's like an aspect of the one self, the one consciousness that some would say God, that is all there is. All these little selves are still aspects of this one self. And if you are using energy to pretend to be somebody else, you know, not being able to accept who you are, then you're creating such a split between your little self and the big self. You're not going to awaken to your true nature if you're all the time trying to be somebody else. So I use a lot of time on acceptance, a real understanding of the personality, how it works, and then also meditation techniques that I feel take people more directly to an experience of who they are. I don't spend a lot of time on psychic stuff. You know, people, because sometimes people get confused what is psychic development and what is spiritual development. And people can spend a lot of time trying to develop psychic gifts and stuff like this. And this is not a good idea, because often people use this kind of teaching to escape from really being present in the moment with who they are. So people need to be able to be present with themselves, with this deep acceptance, going deeply into the space within, into the inner peace. So this is what I would say I focus on. I also speak very much about what's happening in the world, because the world is also the self, playing itself out as the world. So I talk a lot about the world, and teaching people to be in the world but not of it. And that really means being able to deal with the world without getting stuck, without being over-identified, being able to deal with the personality without being over-identified with it. This is how I seem to work. And I do a lot of things with the body, dancing, moving, singing. Because if people can keep the body loose, then it's much easier for them to be in the body, to be physical and enjoy it, and to stay grounded.
So we are here at Singing Heart Ashram.
Yes.
Could you say something about Singing Heart?
Yeah. Well, I never imagined I'd be having an ashram in India. People were looking for an ashram for me somewhere in the West many years back. And then this mountain, Arunachala, started calling me in meditation. And I just knew that I had to be here and spend the night going into the new millennium on top of Arunachala. People told me this wasn't possible and, all kinds of stuff. And I ended up on top of Arunachala, going into the new millennium, 12 hours in meditation, chanting the Gayatri Mantra. And then it all just unfolded. A couple of years later, I was invited to this area here. The next thing I knew, somebody provided land for an ashram. I don't own this. I don't own anything anywhere in the world. And I'm not interested in owning anything. But suddenly I found this ashram growing up around me. And I'm still here with this place. So it all just unfolded, actually, as everything does. And the name Singing Heart was the name I had for a center that I had for 10 years in Denmark, many years back. It's not because I'm a singer. If you've listened to me singing in the meditation hall, you know that's not why it's called Singing Heart. But my own pathway had very much to do with the heart, understanding the alchemy of the heart. And this is also part of my teaching. Whatever happens to you, anything that arises in your inner world or the outer world, you can hold it, you can be with it, and still stay in the open heart, the singing heart. So Singing Heart is very much about the alchemy of the heart. We do sing and chant a lot here, but the name Singing Heart is very much to do with the deep mystery of the heart. That you can experience anything you have to experience. The fear, the anger, the hatred, the sadness, whatever. You can experience it all and still stay in touch with the heart. And that makes the way much smoother. There's a real wisdom in the heart which shows itself to you naturally. The more you can stay in the heart, no matter what is happening. So this is why I'm sitting here with the Singing Heart Ashram.
And if you could give one piece of advice to people watching, what would that be?
One piece of advice?
Or just advice?
Yeah, one piece of advice. Trust yourself. Trust the role that's playing through you. Don't judge it. Yet one very important piece of advice, watch this pointed finger. This is one of the greatest obstacles. You know, so don't judge yourself. Stay in touch with the heart. Find out what keeps you in touch with the heart and stay with that. And at the same time, a discipline is needed to become all that you can become. Right? A discipline is needed to, you know, take these pieces of the personality and bring them up to the heart so that they can express their true potential. Whatever moves through you, just know that anything that comes and goes isn't ultimately who you are. But don't judge, don't be afraid of the role that you're playing, and do whatever you can to really, really get into this deep contact with the heart. And when you stop judging yourself, you'll also stop judging other people. And the way is much smoother, much easier. But trust yourself and trust the part you're playing, or the part that's playing through you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.